Let's go, guys.
How's it going? Long time no see. Welcome to another developer update live stream for Diablo 4. My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm the community director here for Diablo. I'm joined by our wonderful panel here. Some familiar faces, one new face. Feel free to introduce yourselves, you guys.
Thanks. I'm Joe Shelley, game director for Diablo 4.
I'm Antonio Watson, associate dungeon designer for Diablo 4.
And I'm Joe Pipora. I'm the associate game director for Diablo 4's live service.
And I know you guys actually just saw an early look at Season 2, Season of Blood, with that video before the actual live stream kicked off. I do want to start off, before we kick off into this conversation, there is going to be an emergency alert if you live in the US at 11:20 on every single mobile device. So you may actually see us look at our phones or our watches, or you might hear it at home if you live in the US. So if you do hear a weird noise or something, we've tried throwing everyone's phones out the room, but it still might happen. So it's a good time check, though, which lets me know that it's 11:20.
So
really
season 2, by the way, guys, starts on the 17th.
Yeah, Pacific time, 11:20 Pacific. Sorry, we live in California, and so that is the time that we
Photoshop over here.
So
I'm taking screenshots.
That is in
for like a condensed version of the video.
But I did want to give that heads up to everyone that if you hear a weird noise, or if you hear a weird noise at home, that's what it is. It's a test. If you live in the US. If you live in the US, that is.
Yeah, well,
but we do have a lot to talk about here. We do want to talk about Season 2, of course, with Season of Blood. And go through all the gameplay mechanics, a little bit about the story, some of the new elements that are coming within this season, since we're now coming really close to Season of Blood, which is coming out on October 17th. And of course, Season of the Malignant will also be ending on October 17th, so it'll be a
just
season
ends and it
transition
starts
for players between both seasons. And then we have a bunch of gameplay updates and quality of life updates to actually go through a ton. Like this, we expect this actual developer update live stream to go for about 2 hours, because we do need to go through a ton of items with everyone. And then we have some news and announcements to make regarding Diablo 4 towards the end. And of course, we have our Q&A, which we'll be taking questions from Twitch chat. And then I know we actually have some questions from the forums, because we had started a forum thread earlier this week, or late last week, regarding the developer update live stream. So I do know that we do want to kick it off with a little bit about Season 2.
Yeah.
So want to jump straight into it?
Let's dive in. So I know that we just watched the video together where we talked about the Season of Blood, but in Season 2, the players are going to be confronting a new villain who's begun to surface throughout Sanctuary. A character named Lord Zir, this ancient vampire who's awoken recently and begun to gather all of these vampire cultists and other followers to his banner in effort to kind of overtake Sanctuary and achieve his own aims across the world. Now, while the player is progressing through the season, they're going to meet a new character named Eris, who I think we have. So you're going to meet Eris during the course of the season. Eris is a vampire hunter who's been trying to thwart Lord Zir for the past the past few weeks and months. Trying to hunt them down and try to eliminate them entirely. She's not having great luck sort of investigating the cults. She needs more help. The player is going to kind of enter the picture, but as part of the story, as the player is progressing through the season, mild spoiler here, but the player is going to contract vampirism. But due to the strange nature of the interaction with the Lilith's blood in the player character, they're going to be able to resist some of the effects of Lord Zir's influence, and instead gain all of those same powers without those detriments that are holding back other creatures, which can be really, really cool. But Eris is going to be fairly nervous about this, as she's only ever seen anyone who ends up actually contracting vampirism in this way end up following and serving Lord Zir in the end.
I'm guessing she can actually attack too, since she actually has
dig
a
more
weapon.
into a little bit later on with enemies and such. But this represents this interesting new character that you'll be able to work with as you're kind of following the quest line of the season. So as you're going through these things, you'll be kind of going across all of the world. And I know, Antonio, we talked about how, or rather we had talked before about how there are a number of dungeons we added with the season, and you kind of go into some of those part of the quest line.
Yeah, so we have new dungeons that are part of the quest line. You can explore crypts. There's a really cool dungeon at the end when you are going to confront Zir for the final battle.
this real quick.
And in addition to that, throughout the story, you will be revisiting some old places that are a bit different now that Zir's minions have come and taken over.
Yeah. So I've seen, I think we're seeing some of the dungeon stuff here.
Yep.
So the new dungeons in the quest line are pretty cool, particularly that finale that you called out, like when you're going to sort of get a chance to, once you've tracked down Lord Zir with Eris and you get a chance to really confront him in his lair. You know, those are some pretty epic moments that we don't want to actually show on stream just
no
now.
spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers for all that stuff just yet, but definitely a lot of things to look forward to. So the player's going to meet other characters as well as they're progressing through the season. You know, there are other allies they kind of are going to meet. They're going to learn more about Lord Zir's plans overall, what his real intentions are for Sanctuary as all of this is going on. So that's kind of like the high level of what's happening in the world. Basically, Lord Zir and his army of vampiric cultists are trying to take everything over, and that manifests in a bunch of different ways throughout the season. But I think the first thing I really want to talk about, or the next thing I want to talk about, are the mechanics, like what you're going to be doing during the season to kind of gain power and such. So we talk about the fantasy of the season is that the player is basically becoming part vampire during the course of the Season of Blood. And part of that comes down to making sure that we have cool vampiric powers for players to collect and
I'll screenshot
use.
this.
So what we see here is our vampiric power user interface. It's the way players are going to be able to collect a lot of powers as they're progressing through the season, and then slot them into the circular UI above.
So we get 5 powers.
So, throughout the season, players are going to be able to acquire up to 22 vampiric powers.
22,
as they play.
okay.
And these are designed such that they are, unlike in Season 1, where with Malignant Hearts, we had a lot of very class-specific hearts baked in. We tried to make sure that the vampiric powers that players collect in Season 2 are all class-agnostic in nature.
That's so
that
good.
There's just more combinations.
I gave them that
for
suggestion
players
as the
to select
partner.
from and play with as they're thinking about
I'm
their
so
build.
glad they did that.
And yeah, so we have a few of these showing up
screenshot
right
it.
here. They come in a few different varieties in terms of the level of power of them, and each of them have a pack cost. Well, I'll be able to talk about a little bit more in just a moment. But you see these pack costs listed at the bottom. Players need to acquire a certain armor pieces that have these packs associated with them in order to fuel these. Again, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. Why don't we actually see if we take a look at maybe a couple of these powers themselves real fast.
Okay, I want to see
Yeah,
this
so here's
in
one. So players
gameplay.
can have a vampiric power they get as they're progressing through the season, where their evade allows them to turn to like a cloud of bats, and it also makes them unstoppable for a few seconds after they use it at the same time.
Okay, so that's literally like the abilities
it's
that
a
the
way
enemies
for the
have.
player to deliver a new effect that you can get throughout the season, which is called Vampiric Curse. So when you see that red effect above a lot of the creatures that the player is fighting, they're under the effects of Vampiric Curse. And if you kill them while that effect is active on those creatures, you get to steal their souls and bind them to you for a short period of time, up to 8 of them at a time.
Oh, so it's like
And
basically
then
like a
when you
headhunter?
use a defensive ability on your character, you unleash all of these souls, as you can see here. These missiles, like these spirit missiles that fly out and hit lots of different creatures as you're playing through. So it kind of gives you this opportunity as you're going through packs and dungeons or elsewhere to kind of stack these up and use them to quickly burn down groups or elites that you might have to come across as you're playing. There's other cool things you'll get, like there's abilities for based on other companion skill uses and other things where you can we have this where the bats will come down and attack your enemies. And then many other powers. We talked about there was an overpower power we showed before. There's another one here that is more focused on channeling skills. Yeah, here it is. So when you start using channeling skills, you'll be able to drop this pool of blood around you, which gives you some extra protection.
Whirlwind
Also
lets you
enhances all the
also
damage that you deal while you're nearby.
move with
so
it.
This is going to be able to fire when you're using any kind of channeling skill and enhance those channeling skills. It just gives you a bit more positional gameplay to be thinking about when you're playing into this build. So pretty fun ways for you to kind of maximize and get extra damage from a channeling build for a class.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's cool about the that I like about the Vampiric Curse is that there are a few different ways, a few different things that can trigger it, and a few different ways to key off it. And so a lot of these vampiric powers have interactions with that curse. It kind of forms a unifying thread in some ways.
Yeah, absolutely. We think it's a really cool extra ability for players to play with, and being able to trigger it in different ways is very fun, we think. So the next thing I want to talk about was actually how you're able to
No
fuel
new
your
class to
vampiric
answer your
power,
question.
those packs I talked about before.
Just
So
powers.
if you look here in the inventory screen, you'll see that that all of the armor pieces that players are collecting are going to have a set number of packs associated with them. So you see here on the items themselves, they all have these small symbols off on the left-hand side, or underneath them, or rather. And these represent the various packs that players can collect of the 3 different types to fuel all the vampiric powers they can collect. Because ultimately, you want to gather all your vampiric powers, you want to level them all up to level 3 to make them as strong as you can get them, and then you want to make sure that you can fuel all of those vampiric powers so you can have all 5 slotted that you really care about. And to do that, you need to make sure that you've got the right kinds of armor pieces available. You know, the packs are only going to appear in armor. They don't appear on jewelry or on weapons, just on armor pieces. But and I should say, every armor piece that drops during the course of the Season of Blood will always have packs associated with them as well. So you're not looking for items that are going to have. It's not rare in that way. And as the player progresses through the season, they're going to also gain these new items. They're able to collect from completing various content types. We'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But these allow players to basically remove packs from items. They allow them to eject new packs into items, up to the pack limit, which is based upon the tier of content the player is playing in. So normal items have 3, and then Sacred have 4, and then on to 5 as you go into Ancestral. So as you're progressing through, you can get more of these packs, and you have a lot more control over your ultimate pack loadout on your items as you collect more and more of these consumables that you can use to kind of modify and update your items. So we're really excited about this. Great ways to get these are going and completing other, like I mentioned, the Blood Harvest in the video. We'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But killing Blood Seekers is a way to get these in a really good way. So there's lots of ways to kind of grab these. So that is that's kind of like the very high level. We'll talk more about the other things you'll be doing to gain those vampire powers. We get to some of the other sections of when we're talking about Season 2. But there's also a lot of new enemies and things we're adding as part of Season 2 as well.
Right. So as part of Season 2, we actually added a bunch of new monsters. Lord Zier has a ton of different minions that will be all throughout the continent. First, we have here our Shadow Vampires. These guys are not your typical flavor of vampires. They have a bunch of really cool new attacks. You'll see them all over the overworld. You'll see them in a variety of dungeons. Paired with these guys, we also have our Blood Skeletons. These guys are kind of similar to our regular skeletons, but they also come with new attacks that allow you to have new counterplay and techniques in order to defeat them and get around them. So be prepared for that.
Yeah, they have a little more area denial baked in their kits, right? As you're fighting some of the
5 new small monsters, right?
Yeah, you definitely want to watch where you step when you're engaging with these guys.
Yeah. And the vampires have these cool things where they occasionally drop these giant heart-like lumps on the ground, and sometimes they'll be able to trigger shields off of these things. So you kind of change your target priority as you're going through spaces where you have to fight shadow vampires frequently to make sure that you're knocking these things out to prevent those shields from being applied. So yeah, there's some cool things to react to as part of this. But of course, that's not even the only creature, right? Because there's the man himself, right?
Yeah. So we also have Lord Zier. Here he is on his throne.
So this is the new boss right here, right?
He is the mastermind. You will be facing off with him throughout the season and during the end of the season. He is our big bad evil guy, and coming along with him are his lieutenants, the Bloodseekers.
Oh yeah, the Bloodseekers. So Bloodseekers are really cool. So Bloodseekers are a new idea in Season 2, and the concept here is that as the player has been is sort of protected a little bit by Lilith's blood in this way, that they're not able to be controlled by Lord Zier after they contract vampirism under his in his forces.
Some new armor.
There are other heroes who've gone out there that don't have that same level of protection. Who've gone out there trying to stop Lord Zier, trying to stop the vampiric advances. And they have fallen victim to the blood cults and to Lord Zier's forces that way. And for those characters, now you've got vampiric sorceresses, you've got vampiric barbarians, you've got these blood seekers out there looking to kill you, the player. So as you're progressing through, you'll be dealing with enemy rogues, you'll be dealing with enemy druids and necromancers as you're playing, and dealing with their specific spells and kits that we've created for the season for players to interact with.
Oh, so are those the 5 new bosses?
Finding Bloodseekers is great because these guys are just blood bags. They drop. They have a really, really good chance to drop potent blood. And potent blood is going to be the currency that you're going to be collecting through the season. You'll be able to use to basically upgrade powers that you already have, your vampiric powers, and unlock new ones that are available through the vampiric power UI. So really, whenever you find Bloodseekers, you want to take them out because they are, first, they're pretty fun to fight. They're a little challenging, but they also have the ability to give you big upgrades for your vampiric powers. And they can jump you too, right? So like we make sure like Bloodseekers are you'll find them in the world, particularly like in Blood Harvest. We'll talk about that again. I keep saying we'll talk about things in a minute, but there are lots of chances to get them to fight them in Blood Harvest. But you can also find them in dungeons and stuff too, right?
Yeah, so you can see them in the overworld, but they will also invade you in dungeons. So don't let them catch you slipping. They will be all over, finding you when you least expect it.
Yeah. So you just as you're passing through a dungeon, you will have a barbarian jump on you, whirlwind. They'll be all trying to slow you down, right, and causing problems. Yeah. Very, very fun. So yeah, a lot of new enemy types as part of the new season. So then I guess the next thing is finally it's time to talk about Blood Harvest.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned before that Lord Zir
everyone got
is
that
taking over
emergency
Sanctuary,
alert.
and
Yeah.
Blood Harvest is really the way that we're representing that. Starting right at level 1, you'll find that Lord Zir's minions have taken over broad swaths of the 5 zones in Sanctuary, and it's going to be filled with like his minions out there.
So
trying
it's
to
marked on
drain
the
the
map
blood,
too.
a variety of different
Oh,
people.
you can hear it in the stream too. Hey, it's gonna happen everywhere.
Emergency alert we talked about.
There we go.
All right.
Now
Okay.
everyone gets to experience this together.
And my phone as well.
So while these events are active, or rather these activities are active, you'll find Lord Zir's armies like marching across Sanctuary, taking people hostage, taking them prisoner, draining them of blood, and just causing general havoc in these areas where there's like new propping and there's new creatures.
Okay, so
there's
these
lots
are
of
all the
things
new
to,
monsters,
to
folks?
do as you're kind of going through this.
So what's the difference between Blood Harvest and Helltide?
Sure. There's a that's a great question.
So it's
Antonio.
basically
obviously there's some
Helltide.
some similarities
In a sense where it's
to the
just
way that things
in the
are
open
working in
world, I
Helltide.
guess.
The difference here is that first of all, it's available right away at level 1.
Okay,
as
so it's
you're
level
progressing.
1. Okay.
But also, while these events are active, there's always a Blood Harvest active across Sanctuary at any given time. Like when a Blood Harvest ends in one location somewhere in Sanctuary, a new one's going to pop up as Lord Zir's forces now move to a new location.
So getting the
And
map completed
one of the cool things about Blood Harvest that's a
ASAP
little
is
bit,
good.
different than things like Helltide is that as you're kind of going through and playing, you're going to be earning a couple of new materials that you don't get elsewhere. And that is you're going to be able to earn Bloodlures, which Bloodlures that you'll be able to use to basically like bait Bloodseekers to come to you to be able to fight packs of them as time goes on. And you're also going to be earning these vampiric keys you can use to open like prisoners like cuffs, to be able to open vampiric caches and other things out in the overworld. And one of the cool things about this is that these materials that you're collecting, these currencies that you need to kind of like do some of these activities, these don't disappear at the end of a Blood Harvest. So as you collect them, they stay with you from that point forward. So there's not limited progress in that way. Yeah, here's an example of a player going and using Bloodlures to summon a few of the Bloodseekers in combat. So yeah, and then whirlwinding accordingly. But so that's a couple differences. And the other is there's actually another new feature that we're adding in Season 2, which we're calling right here, it's called Hunter's Acclaim. Oh. And as you do things in the Blood Harvest area, as you're killing Bloodseekers, as you are freeing prisoners, as you're completing new Blood Harvest themed whispers that are also going to be active in those areas, you're going to be earning Hunter's Acclaim that will allow you to basically go and earn a number of other rewards. Some of the vampiric powers that you want to unlock for your character are available through the system. A few of them, and then there's lots of like potent blood you can get from the system, and then also gear.
It's already better than Season 1.
So there's a bunch of different stuff in here for players.
In terms of complexity.
It's we're really excited to see how they level up in this experience.
And the Blood Harvest occurs in addition to Helltide, right? Once you progress up into the higher
They showed off some of the
tiers, you'll still be
cosmetics,
seeing
but
Helltide.
I'm sure they'll show off
That's
the
absolutely
battle
right.
pass.
You'll still see Helltides as well, but you'll also see
20
higher
minutes in,
level,
it's supposed to be like
Blood
an
Harvest,
hour
as you get
plus.
to, like World Tiers 3 and 4.
Awesome. So we got a lot of information here about Season 2, but Season 2 also has some other components to it that actually are beyond even just like seasonal stuff. Like, and I know people may have seen in the video the discussion that we quickly brought up like before the stream actually started, which was about the new bosses that are being added in. Can you guys kind of walk through like what the new endgame boss system is going to be for players that do want to kind of experience that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right that first and foremost, this is content we're adding to the Eternal Realm as well as the Seasonal Realm from this point forward.
Oh, so the bosses are going to be in
add more
both.
activities like this as
Nice.
time goes on. But there's actually, I think I have a handy dandy chart, a very designery chart to help players understand kind of what we're talking about here. So what you see here is the way that we kind of look at the content progression of Diablo 4, the way the players are playing through the experience, the sorts of activities they engage with as they play at various
like
stages.
in season 1, right?
Yeah, in pre-season and season 1. So yeah, you can think of it in that way. Yeah, our 1 to 50 experience, obviously you're leveling up initially. Maybe you're going through the campaign for the first time. You're progressing through. Eventually you get out of World Tiers 1, 2, and get into World Tier 3 after you finish the capstone. Here you get to do, you have higher level whispers to do. You get exposed to Nightmare Dungeons for the first time. You get exposed to Helltide for the first time. World boss get a little bit tougher. Legion events get a little bit tougher. And we're making some changes there as well. And then eventually you get into World Tier 4, now you're getting your ancestral items, and you continue to move on through Nightmare Dungeons, and you continue on through Helltide until eventually you go and you confront Echo of Lilith, potentially, if that's one of your goals for yourself, and you try to take her out. So that's kind of like what we had in place right at launch, not even thinking about Season 1 necessarily.
Sure. Oh, okay,
but that's
so it's going to be
what
changing.
the endgame sort of looks like. It's a lot of Nightmare Dungeons, a lot of Helltide, right? And we've heard a lot of feedback from players, and also from our experiences playing the game. That players are looking for more milestones, they're looking for more goals, they're looking for more things to farm, ways to make their characters powerful. So there's some big changes we're making as part of the Season of Blood, and we can show that here. So now when the player gets into World Tier 3, there's 2 new bosses for them, or 1 returning boss for them to go and engage with. The first is Echo of Varshan, our good boy Varshan that everybody loves, is going to be back in Season 2 for players to be able to hunt down in order to kill, to get various craft materials they can use to summon other bosses later, but also specifically to get uniques that only drop from Varshan. So every one of the bosses that we add as part of the Season of Blood is going to have their own distinct loot list associated with them. So with unique items, and there are some cosmetic rewards as well that we'll be able to talk about in a little bit. So that's a reason why you're going to want to go hunt each of these down. Now on this board here, you can see that I kind of connect the dots in terms of where these things come from. So if you want to go hunt Varshan, you need to go complete Whispers. There's chances for you to find malignant creatures as you're completing Whispers in the overworld. They have rare chances.
So wait, so malignant monsters are staying? Dude, I mean the hearts are staying. I'm hoping.
You need from completing Whisper bounty turn-ins. So when you go and you get your cash reward at the end of a Whisper run, there's a chance for you to have one of the pieces that you need to summon Varshan, reconstitute him. Because
so
in
it's
the
like
Season of Blood, there are new layers
like a fragment system
around the world. And
like
the lair for
PoE,
Varshan is in a kind of a corrupted hollow, malignant hollow beneath the Tree of Whispers. So right there's an entrance down in where you're able to fight some awesome malignant creatures. No malignant hearts dropping, but malignant creatures certainly down there. And at the end of that small dungeon, you're able to go and basically throw these materials into this new brazier that we've added to be able to summon Varshan back from the dead to fight him for the special loot that he has. Now, one of the new creatures that we're adding is this the Galvanic Saint, which we'll show off some of the new art for some of these characters in just a moment. But this is a new, very lightning-themed boss that players will be able to go and engage with as they complete Helltide content. They will learn Infernal Steel from opening various caches and use this as a way, as part of a new layer, to go and summon the Galvanic Saint and deal with his lightning-themed attacks. And that's actually something that might be worth pointing out. While we're not talking about the elemental resistance changes until next week when Adam comes back with Charles and they talk about all the class changes and itemization updates that are happening as part of the season.
That's just going to make us more tanky,
It's worth pointing out that several of the bosses in this chain have they are very elementally themed in terms of their attacks. So you should be looking for lightning resist explicitly if you're trying to farm Grigwar. And
just play sorceress and you'll be good.
From the Beast Device later. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. So okay, so that's World Tier 3. This is a way for you to get some of those build-defining uniques you might need to kind of progress to the Sacred Tier, give you those extra rewards as you go. So now we're talking about World Tier 4 for a second. So you've got into World Tier 4. Echo Varshan is now still available for you to fight in World Tier 4, where he drops ancestral versions of those same unique items. And the Galvanic Saint is also available for players to fight to get ancestral versions of those unique items. So those are still there. Additionally, when you kill Varshan and when you kill the Galvanic Saint in World Tier 4, they drop summoning components that you need in order to summon Duriel, King of Maggots, who is a new level 100 boss that we're adding as part of the seasonal experience.
A level 100 boss.
Items, as well as a low chance to drop uber unique items.
So what does that mean, like, in terms when you say uber uniques? A lot of people go like, oh, low chance. There's already a low chance. So what does that mean for a player for uber uniques now with
it's gonna be farmable?
That's a great question. You will absolutely know people that have uber uniques after this goes live, and there's a way for you to farm them specifically from going after Duriel, right? It is still not every time you kill Duriel, you're gonna get an uber unique item. They're still very rare relative to other item types. But it's not like it was in the past. Like you're going to see people in your clan that have uber uniques. You're going to know people that have uber uniques. You have a way to hunt for these, right? In this world. So that's a really big push as part of the new seasonal program. Now there are the two other bosses that I didn't talk about too much. The first is the Beast in Ice. So the Beast in Ice is a new boss that you can go and summon after you start completing Nightmare Dungeons higher than Tier 30. So Tier 31 plus Nightmare Dungeons, 85-ish monsters and so on from there. As you fight and complete these Nightmare Dungeons, there's chances for the components that you need to drop at the end of the Nightmare Dungeon. You'll be able to use to make a new special Nightmare Dungeon key that explicitly brings you to the Beast in Ice's lair. So that is the way that you're able to summon forth the Beast in Ice and fight them in combat to get their special loot. And they've got some really potent items as well. And then lastly, for the new boss we're adding with the season, is we talked about Lord Zir already. While you will be able to confront like a story version of Lord Zir as you go through the quest line in World Tiers 1 and 2, there is a much more difficult, challenging version of Lord Zir that you'll fight in World Tier 4 once you're ready for that content. And you'll be able to access and summon forth Lord Zir this way as you kill world bosses in Season 4 and as you kill, in Season 2 rather, Season 4. As you kill world bosses, yeah, I know, I really am. As you kill world bosses in World Tier 4, and as you complete Legion events in World Tier 4, you'll be able to gather these materials forward and bring them to go and summon Lord Zir. So, a couple extra things to kind of call out here. Actually, why don't we show? I think we have video of these new bosses.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh. Okay, so it looks like there's actually standing mechanics.
Summoning in for the first time. Very excited for players to go and do that fight.
That's Zir? Ooh.
Beast in Ice in his new lair. And
this Duriel.
Duriel, maggots. So gross. Yeah, it's super gross. Very fun. So yeah, these three we obviously still have Lord Zir. We don't want to show off the boss fight just yet, but you'll get a chance to go and obviously
Isn't Beast of Ice in Diablo Immortal?
And a much more difficult version of him later. But one other thing worth calling out as part of this, the materials that players are going to be collecting to use to summon forth these bosses. There's a couple advantages. First, if you've got friends, you can try to farm these components up together and use that as a way to more quickly access these fights and get more chances and opportunities.
It's way better to be in a group. Okay. But season's looking good so far.
You can also trade these materials between players as well. So if you've got half the things you might need to summon Barshan, but you don't have the other half, you can go on trade chat and try to find the remaining.
Oh, so these are tradable.
Spend the gold necessary to maybe exchange for those things, and then go more quickly summon the boss that you need. And also, as you collect these materials, you realize you may have overfarmed the materials that you need to summon, and you got the items you're really looking for early enough. Now you have a chance to go and take those and maybe sell those off, to make a tidy profit for yourself.
But there's not really a good trade system in the game. You're gonna have to go to Diablo.
Exactly. Make friends.
Diablo.
Yeah, make friends for sure. Yeah.
And you said this before, but all 5 of these bosses have unique loot tables.
Yes.
That have specific uniques on them that you can target.
That's right. So if you're looking for a particular unique item in the game, and we've added a lot of unique items in Season 2 as well that also can all appear on these bosses.
A lot of unique items.
You will know the sorts of boss you're looking for in order to farm for those items. Right, so if you're looking for something, there is a boss that is going to drop it. You know what you need to
some new mounts.
Try to get those items.
I don't really care too much about
what we're saying here is just some of
I want
the
more endgame content,
exclusive, items that you can find off of some of these bosses that within the 5 of them on their drop tables. But then, like Joe and Joe have mentioned, you can find unique items off of them. And Uber Duriel has the opportunity of dropping Uber uniques. And yes, you will find people and know people that and may find yourself an actual Uber uniques with this season for and going forward, because again, this is in Eternal Realm and this is in every season going forward, and we'll be adding more to it.
That's right.
And I know a lot of people have been asking about unique items and hey, are there going to be any future changes for unique items? And I just want to note because we had been talking about the stream on October 10th, where that stream, where we just have a lot to talk about today, so we're actually splitting up the streams. But on October 10th, we're talking more about class balance changes. We're also talking about unique item updates. In fact, nearly every unique item is getting some sort of update in Diablo 4.
Huge.
And we're actually going to be talking more about that.
Because they've been so
on the
garbage for
10th.
high-level play.
So these unique items are obviously going to be, you know, big things to actually kind of hunt for players when they are fighting these specific bosses. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about today. We'll have more to talk about on the 10th, and of course we're also going to be talking about resistances more on the 10th with Adam Jackson, and some of the damage bucket changes. Like I know we have like crit, vulnerable, and overpower damage that's also getting
do not move into additive.
Adjusted and to kind of what we mentioned in prior streams. So
they're moving to additive. This is terrible, guys. This is actually a terrible move.
We got to hear
if they actually follow through with that.
Now we do want to talk about some of the games.
You're gonna lose like
changes that are
5 times plus damage. You're gonna lose insane amount of damage.
List that we actually do.
No way. They said
it's going to take us a.
From what they mentioned, which was moving it to additive,
and a lot to discuss here. But we do want to kind of jump right into them so we can kind of get through all of them for sure. And a lot of this, and I do want to like preface, a lot of this is based off of things we've heard within the community, community feedback, and also just changes that we most definitely wanted to make.
Of UDC and hardcore,
to make a better experience for players, especially as we were going through preseason, season 1. So, Joe, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, and so we can see. I'm going to talk about Scroll of Escape here. I just wanted to mention we're seeing some of the images of some of the mount and some of those item art.
Oh yeah.
Those are also new cosmetics that are exclusive to you can get from farming.
That's
farming
correct. Yes, these are exclusively dropped from the various bosses that we're talking about in season 2.
Yeah.
Yep. On Eternal and Seasonal.
And these, when we say eternal and seasonal, we mean that these are going to persist. Persist beyond season 2.
That's correct. Yeah, these bosses aren't going to go away at the end of the season. We want to add more things for players to do once they get into these World Tier 3 and 4 content tiers. There's more updates we want to make to existing content types. We'll talk about some of those things today.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more planned. This is sort of like the first step in like creating more interesting activities for players as they get into World Tier 4, especially as they're thinking about level 100, especially making sure there's more fun things for players to do and engage in.
More for an endgame.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Scrolls of Escape. It's been a little while coming, but Scrolls of Escape will now be consumed automatically if you disconnect while you're in combat. Because this is a consumable item, we feel pretty good about the case where people are, disconnecting on purpose. You're still going to consume that item, so we feel pretty good about this change. And it always sucks to die to a disconnect in hardcore. Yeah.
Never fun.
Incenses, which are the party-wide version of elixirs, of course, will now grant a bonus to experience, and they will persist through death. So they'll be more useful. Now this is a big one. We have a bunch of different experience changes that we're going to go over here. You're going to see a few different references to different experience changes. One of the things, and if you're playing Season 1, you'll notice that we did make some adjustments to experience in Season 1 as well. That's sort of, all this is sort of coming together with some changes to how experience is calculated in terms of which things are multiplicative. So the way this will work is, in general, you've got different kinds of experience bonuses. So you've got maybe a bonus from incenses that we just added, for example. You've got other experience bonuses maybe from seasonal blessings. These are going to add together in a bucket and then be multiplicative with your World Tier bonus.
Okay,
this means that these experience bonuses will be much more impactful in Season 2 than they were in Season 1. In fact, cumulatively, as I said, there are a number of different experience bonuses here. And cumulatively, your time, compared to Season 1, your time to get to level 100 is going to be 40% faster.
40%, about 40% faster to reach level 100
than it was in Season 1. Yeah, in Season 2. This is,
why would we do that?
Well,
most
we
people aren't
found that
level 100.
Season 2 is really about, we just talked about all of the boss changes that add more content to do as you're leveling up. We also want players to be able to get to level 100. It's a goal that many players set for themselves, and it should be an achievable goal. And so in Season 1, we saw that there were some players who were getting frustrated. You maybe get to level 75, and you're like, I want there to be more things to do, and this is like, just feels like it kind of slows down, and we really wanted to smooth that over. And
But the
make
glyph leveling is still too
reaching that
slow.
goal and getting to the end of the season journey feel like an achievable goal for all our players who invest time in the season. And of course, along the way, you're going to be having a lot more cool stuff to do with all of the boss ladder stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, these are good changes. Very excited about this.
So, as I said, we'll talk more about other changes to experience as we go through this. But moving on for the moment, when you skip the campaign to jump into the world, as many players do at the start of a season, you're going to have more waypoints that start unlocked compared to previous seasons. That means you don't have to do quite as much running to unlock waypoints as you're going. This isn't every single waypoint, but it's key strategic waypoints that are related to places that you want to go and are centrally located.
Yeah, make it a little bit easier to get around to like whispers that are in rotation as you're like leveling up your character initially. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some other
they're
changes.
still locked to
There's
levels, so
kind of a suite
I don't
of
know.
changes. I was just talking about a number of changes to experience. There's also a suite of changes to sort of town efficiency, and this is the first one we're going to talk about some more.
Yes.
This is a big one. I know this is one that's
No more
close to
renown.
Joe's heart in particular. Renown rewards will now persist between seasons. So what this means is that when you create a new character in a season, you can still earn renown. You can still do side quests if that's something that you enjoy doing. You can go and do strongholds. You can do all of those content types. But all of the rewards that are associated with renown will persist. So if you had, and you don't have to, you're not going to have to log in on a different character or anything. Like any reward that you've claimed, if you claimed it in preseason, on Eternal, in Season 1, on any character, you're going to have that reward automatically when you create your new character.
So it feels
in
like they are
Season 2,
listed in quite
and
a
this
bit.
applies to all of those obols. It applies to skill points,
potion upgrades.
potion
Changes.
upgrades. all
The
that
other
stuff.
thing is glyphs.
It's
They
just
need to
nice
make that
be able
way
to start
faster,
a
like
new
10
character
times
and not
faster.
feel like you have to go do every single side quest over again to get
Yeah.
all of the stuff.
Yeah, and this is something it's a really good point, Antonio, because when we are talking about these general improvements, what these came from is
No PvP changes
a lot
mentioned
like
yet.
us, the dev team playing the game, and I think Joe mentioned this before, but it's really important, playing the game and then reading feedback from players, feedback on social, feedback from videos, everything, and really looking at like what are players asking for, where are there places where we can make the game
Where
more
the
fun?
Diablo
Because,
partner shout
we
out.
talked back in Season 1, like our goal is to continue making the game more fun for players, right? And so this is really
Leaderboard's
sort of
not
the
till
result
Season
of
3,
that.
to answer your question, is
Yeah,
what they
absolutely.
mentioned.
I think making sure that
like
players have
Season
more
0, something
choices
like
when they are able to log into their seasonal character right away and not feel like they've got this oppressive goal of needing to completely fill out their renown in order to play optimally for the season.
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
so
it's
glad
really,
the
healthy and good
powers
for the
are,
experience. I'm really excited
like,
for players to be able to just be able to carry these
across
things
all
forward with their characters.
characters.
Now,
There's no
you're not going
locked
to
ones.
log in like you did last time when we made changes in the past. Now, like after you've claimed these rewards in a previous character, you're just going to have them on the future characters.
That's right, yeah. And I was going to say the.
I disrupted your flow.
No, it's all right.
Train of thought
Let's go to the
gone.
next. Let's go to the next bullet. Overworld monsters. Yes. So this relates to another change. We're going to talk about it in a little bit.
Oh, that's.
But,
I don't even know
overworld
why.
monsters will now
I don't even
match
know why
your
they made this
player
change in the
level
first place.
in World Tiers 3 and 4. I know that this is in preseason it worked this way, and we ran into some challenges with the game not feeling like you were getting upgrades that really felt powerful, and players rightly called that out. Like, look, I want to get powerful new items, and then I want to smash monsters.
Yeah,
and
you want
that's-
to feel more powerful.
That's a
when you
really
level up
core
and
part
such.
of the loop. So this change makes these monsters on par with your level. And this is based
You're not
on
like several levels behind.
reviewing Season 1, but it's coupled with some other changes that make sure that that it does feel meaningful and powerful,
Yeah.
and you're not just feeling like, oh, I'm just sort of playing catch up.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more later on.
All right.
And of course, at the end of Season 1, your Season 1 character is going to migrate to the Eternal Realm. And so we've added 2 additional character slots to make sure that you have plenty of space for more characters.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to note is like when characters
two
are
character slots,
migrating
cool.
from season 1 to Eternal Realm, we actually have all that information that's going to be posted immediately after this live.
That's
stream.
helpful, so you don't have to delete characters.
That will be essentially talking about everything related to season 2, and so all the
more
details
stash space,
about how
hopefully.
that actually happens,
I think we're getting that
how
already.
That works.
Maybe
Will
2
be
more
in that blog.
tabs.
It works very
my
similar
guess.
to like if you play Diablo 2 Resurrected, you'll know exactly how that works.
Sets probably won't
and
come until the
it's very
first
similar to
expansion.
that. But all that information will be on the blog afterwards.
Yeah,
So.
we'll go into detail about what happens with your items and how they carry over.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of great info there.
Oh, I guess you can rebirth
Okay, so next I think we have
heroes.
towns. Yeah, towns and vendors. Yeah. So a couple things we've changed here to make towns a little more efficient, and that's like really a focus of ours as we kind of move forward.
So you can just TP to Tree of
First up,
Whispers.
your cultist is now set up by the Tree of Whispers. So when you go back and you turn in your Whispers, there are additional functions you can perform right there without having to like fly off to Kivashot or anywhere else to go do other work. So that's nice for the loop. We've gone through, we've added stashes much more liberally throughout Sanctuary. This is the first of those changes. So any small town with a waypoint attached to it is going to have a stash near it as well now. So just more opportunities to drop things off and pick things up as you're out there playing, either while you're leveling up a character from 1 to 50 and you just are finding things you want to drop off, or as you are playing in the end game and you're finishing Whispers and things nearby. More opportunities to get to a stash. And then, additionally, we've added stashes to like near a lot of different vendors in capital cities. I think we have a video for this in just a moment, but we'll get to that in just a second, I think. But yeah, we've added more stashes all over the place. And then, of course, Purveyors of Curiosities. These lovable rogues, really tucked themselves away in a distant corner of a lot of the capital cities throughout Sanctuary. We're bringing them closer to the waypoints. We're reacclimating them to society, reintroducing them to the world, and just making sure that they're a lot easier to reach, as you can see here on the
there's just multiple.
like the Purveyor of Curiosities is now like right in the tavern.
They put just 4 stashes. Just put one by the waypoint. That's all.
So it's harder for you to.
That's fine. That's not that big of a deal, but
you'll get more gear as you're playing.
The Purveyor has become more social.
Yeah, become more willing to like integrate with the rest of the
I
people.
just think you need one by the
You
waypoint. That's it.
realize his shady dealings aren't actually going to get
Because that's
punished by
more
anyone,
resources
so
that the
it's
game
valuable
uses,
to them out in
right?
the open.
Yeah, the law is a rough construct in many ways in Sanctuary. So in this way, that they're back in the good graces.
And I know, like, because we've heard from players, like, hey, spending time, they spend a lot of time in town, obviously. Like, if they're going to be at the blacksmith or at the purveyor, at the occultist or anything, this is now going to just help make that a little bit more efficient.
I genuinely don't understand the design
different
decision.
areas or different towns, they can now find stashes everywhere. And a lot of it was, thanks to the feedback from players on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does anyone else get
All
why
right,
they
cool.
added like
So I think that's
4
about
like,
it for towns and
stash?
vendors.
Just put one
There's
on the
something
waypoint.
else
That's
to
all.
talk about.
Yes.
Want to talk about mounts?
Yes, we should talk about mounts. This was something that we talked about before. This is something that Mr. Joe Shelley had posted on the platform known as X, formerly known as Twitter.
Did he make a post?
He made a post, not a tweet.
Not
Yeah,
tweet.
he
That's
made
a
a
different
post.
thing. Yeah.
And we've had a lot of people ask about this ever since that post, and we mentioned that it'd be something that's coming in season 2. So do you want to go through all our changes coming from mounts?
Yeah, let's take a look at them.
Oh, mounts. Okay.
The first off, there are a number of changes to mounts, but I want to call out that the one that players and we feel is the most significant here is it's just that they're going to get stuck less, right? So when you're trying to turn your mount like in a tight corner, or you're trying to navigate through a narrow space, the mount is going to much less frequently come to a dead stop or slow down dramatically. And part of that as well is mounts can jump over regular jump
They could have
traversals,
fixed
just like
this
your player.
way easier by just
but,
allowing unit collision
we're a little bit
to
finicky
be
about
ignored.
it. So
10 times
Very
easier,
I
probably,
think
to code.
I think some people didn't. In practice,
didn't always
they
work to
didn't
jump
always,
across.
They didn't always. They were a little bit too scared of jumping over traversals. So we fixed that. It's much more smooth now. So a lot less dismounting as you're traveling around the world.
What about the cooldown for the mount?
And we also increased the base movement speed of mounts. This means that traveling on your mount in town, for example, will be faster. We didn't increase the top speed of the boost, so the maximum boost speed is still the same, but your base movement speed unboosted is going to be 14%
Oh, it breaks through the little barricades. That's
we
a
also
plus.
made a change, and this is one that players point out. We have sort of a cool. I think it's like a very cool system for allowing the mount to have analog control with a mouse and keyboard. But the consequence of this is that it was sort of finicky. You really had to have the mouse cursor at the edge of the screen to get full speed, and if you had a little bit farther away, you kind of felt like, well, am I actually at full speed? So you really felt like it has to be at the edge of the screen at all times, because of course, when you're riding through the world, you want to be going as fast as you can, right? Mm-hmm. And so we made a change here. We didn't remove. Some players have suggested let's just make it binary. I should be at full speed all the time. But we made a change that makes it. The cursor is much more generous about allowing you to be at full speed. It's about half or so of the screen. Beyond that, it'll be at full speed. And so you really have to have the cursor close to your mount if you do want to slow down. And because it is still handy for navigating around between tight areas. So big improvement for mouse and keyboard users there.
Yeah, it just makes the mount a little less, a little easier to use in general, right? Like it's easier to reach that top speed. You don't have to have the mouse as far away and be planning your path at the very edge of the screen constantly. It's just generally not how people play and when they're moving in the game. Yeah. It's usually a little bit closer to their character when they choose their movement options with the mouse. So yeah, feels really good.
I think between the faster mount and moving the important things closer to the waypoint, that is the 40%.
Oh, that's the 40%.
That is 41%. Those experience changes are massive. So.
Yeah. This is just additive to it.
But I think it's a great point because as Adam was saying as well, town efficiency is also something that players care a lot about, right? Mm-hmm. So I mentioned the speed, the spur. This is your speed boost on the mount. We increased the duration. The rate at which you acquire spur charges is the same. So that means that with the increased duration, you're going to be able to be boosted a lot more of the time.
Yeah, way more spur up time.
Yeah, quite. It's close to 100%. I think it's pretty significant. Yep. And of course, this is great because those pesky barricades that would previously cause your mount to stop can be broken through, so you don't need to dismount unless you want to.
Right. Look at this fancy in slide video. You just added. The quality of the production has just gone up. Just as oh, look at this.
We got some production value.
Fancy.
So you can see the player boosting through the barricade there. You also see the player using their dismount skill, and we have some changes related to that as well. So some cooldown changes.
Oh yeah, okay. These are really big.
So I, as Adam mentioned, I posted about this on social media, and one of the things that we were experimenting with is having the mount cooldown reset after you take a traversal, because of course you get off your mount, you take a traversal, and then there's a cooldown before you can mount again. It just feels sort of arbitrary, why that's slowing down the game for no reason, right? So we tested that in practice, and we found that while it was cool, what was even better is just reducing the base cooldown of the mount
I just think
across the
just
board.
remove
So mount
the
cooldown goes
the
down
board.
from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. If you're taking a lot of damage while you're mounted and you get knocked off your horse, the cooldown for getting back on the horse also halved from 30 seconds to 15. And as I mentioned, the dismount combat skill, this is a really cool skill. We want it to feel like players can use it and feel powerful. So this is actually the cool.
It's actually super bad on some classes,
when you
especially
jump
for PvP.
onto your mount.
That I unbound it.
You can use it, and 10 seconds felt way too long.
I think the combat skill could
it's
be
much
way
more
more
fun.
powerful
Just
for
get on your mount,
PvE.
and if you see a pack of creatures that you need for a quest or for a whisper or anything else, be able to just disengage right into them, and start the fight right away, as opposed to having to wait. You just end up not using it.
I would make circles.
I want to see the new content. Okay, I get it. The
Hold on,
mounts.
monsters. I'm gonna do this cool ability.
They're better.
Just give me a little bit.
Just wait, it's happening. I promise. Yeah. So.
Yeah, very cinematic, but not as fun.
Awesome. So I know now. Oh,
God.
Wow. Okay, we have production behind the scenes, by the way, guys.
Yeah, honestly,
they're just smiling back there as they make these crazy swipes between transitions. But We are now going to talk about some changes coming for Nightmare Dungeons.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Glyph leveling.
Antonio, I
This
know,
needs to be changed.
can
This is
kinda
like
take us
priority.
through all our changes here.
Finally, this is what I'm here for.
This is the moment.
This is
Antonio,
what I
this is-
work on. So, yeah, we have tons of changes for Nightmare Dungeons coming this season. The very first big change that we have is teleporting to a Nightmare Dungeon from the map will take the players directly inside the dungeon instead of to
This
the
made
dungeon
no
entrance.
sense.
This
So
will cut
you
down
activate
on
it and
having
it
the
just
double
goes in.
load screens when you just want to go
Thank you.
and play
Transitions.
more, like grind more Nightmare Dungeons and get your Paragon points up. I think this is a pretty, like,
said Paragon
this will be a
points,
pretty
so
popular
it's
change.
still
I
the
think
main
this is
form of
something that
endgame
people wanted
content.
for a
Oh,
while,
it's-
ever since we first implemented
Hell tides,
teleporting
make
to
that-
Nightmare Dungeons.
Yeah, getting rid of this extra load
Like
screen,
a
I think,
good
is a huge boon
thing to
for me.
do.
So I'm supportive.
I don't know why it's still Nightmare Dungeon only for endgame.
Okay, and it's funny enough. What is our What is our stream software thing that we use? vMix. People are claiming we're doing this in PowerPoint. It's actually through vMix. So credit to the. There you go. We could have gone the easy way out and done PowerPoint, but no. All right, sorry for interrupting. There you go.
Moving on, back to Nightmare Dungeons. So our dungeon events have more monster density now. And also, more importantly, in higher world tiers, your NPCs will no longer get one shot. So they will not be completely useless, or the events won't be hopeless when you're trying to defend someone from an onslaught of monsters.
Yeah, in general, I think this is going to be great for just increasing the perceived efficiency of dungeon events across the board.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's pretty like, my friends and I are like, oh, okay, well, your friends and you are going to be okay. Like, I'm just going to leave.
Yeah, we're looking at dungeon events a lot just between the seasons and player feedback to make sure that they're fun to play and people want to engage with them. And this is kind of one of those things that we saw. We're like, yeah, we could do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next, we have traps. In our dungeons, the overall readability has been improved, and the crowd control on the player has been reduced. Look at that slow motion.
Slow motion action shot.
So it will be easier to see these, and more importantly, when you
Is
do
the
get
trap
hit by
CC
them, you are not CC'd long enough to where you will just instantly die all the time.
Yeah, and I want to call this out so players. I want to make sure players are not confused about this. We're not just talking about CC on the traps, right?
Right. We're talking about just CC across the board from monsters.
I actually
just
thought the
in
CC made the
general,
game a little bit more challenging,
Your
but-
CC time will be decreased.
Yeah,
Now we're
so if
moving
I
more
get,
into like D3.
If I get stunned by a vampire knight,
Some people like, some people don't.
I'm
I
gonna
play
spend
all
less
the
time
Diablos,
CC'd.
but
Right.
Waiting, yeah.
Right. Less time CC'd and less time going back and restarting the Nightmare Dungeon because you died.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is really
Like, this is what made the
valuable
game
with increased
harder.
density,
It
of
made it
course,
more like
because
D1, but-
there are more monsters on screen.
Exactly.
like being
Yeah,
frozen.
there's a pretty
but
extensive.
I get it for the
changes
casual
coming
basis
for,
too much.
CC. So when players get a chance
Like
to
fast
pick up
rate
the patch
recovery.
and everything,
If you have none of it in
see,
Diablo
the
1,
full
you just
run
can't
for
play.
that card coming out for CC.
Yeah, very cool.
All right.
Instant
What else we
replay
got?
quality footage.
Just get that
Yeah, I
perma
know.
Wrath of the Berserker, and
can't
then you'll be good,
get
Kappa.
it.
And then you could ignore all of the things that were designed in the game, which is it's a weird decision.
And
but-
also, our Paragon glyph experience has been.
Ah, yes!
This
That's
sort of
the
falls in
huge
line
thing.
with, like,
Oh,
the 40%,
thank God. That was massive.
faster.
40%
level to 100.
faster.
You also will get your Paragon glyph leveled a bit faster, so that as you are leveling up, your Paragon scales effectively with it, and you can feel more powerful faster.
Yeah, but if 40% is still low, like it's
That's
it's
it, though, right? Oh, no,
by
wait,
far
there's a
low.
whole, there's a whole other
No,
section.
there's more stuff.
Oh, okay, well then sure.
You can't
Talk
have
about-
Nightmare Dungeons.
I
without
suggested
the
it to be like
afflictions,
10
right?
times faster.
So we have
it really
a
needs to be
number of
that much
changes
more.
to some of our afflictions. We are constantly
Close
looking at
monsters.
these and evaluating player feedback. The first one up that I have to talk about is backstabbers. So what it used to be was when a monster attacked you from behind, it just did a set increase in damage, which led to a lot of cases where players were getting one shot, right? So we changed this so that the close monsters attacks from behind will now cause you to become vulnerable, and then that vulnerable damage that you take is increased on a scaling metric. So the higher the dungeon tier,
Wouldn't this make it
the
harder?
more
Because
damage
then you have
will take.
all the enemies
This
getting a
gives you little bit more
multiplier
opportunity
versus
to
the
have a
one
bit
on
of
the
counterplay.
backstab.
It's not just
Right.
all of a sudden like you're dead. You can play around this. You can react to it. If you manage to make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. You can strategize and pivot so that you.
The update
don't
doesn't
end
happen
up
until the
easily
17th,
dying.
though.
Yeah, I mean, there's that
So,
vulnerable condition
if
there.
you guys are
does
wondering
give
if
you
it's
that opportunity
worth coming
to
back
see,
to
like,
today,
actually, look, yeah, my health globe is
update's
cracked
out now,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, I need to be more careful as I'm getting hit because the creature can do a lot more damage to me while I'm in this state.
Right.
Yeah.
For monster critical resist, now the monster attacks reduce the damage of your critical strikes for 3 seconds.
Oh, no, 17,
and then
not,
this also
7.
scales by the dungeon tier.
13 days.
So now once again, like if this happens to you, you
2
have the
weeks,
opportunity
yeah.
to play around it, and it's not just
17.
completely nerfing your damage the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, people would avoid this one.
Monster
this
critical
affliction particularly, 'cause
resist?
It was a massive reduction in damage overall because you didn't have any control over it either, right?
Right. And just in general, what we want
it's
to
making the game
avoid
easier.
are afflictions that are instant salvage, right? We don't want you to like look at your sigils and say, oh, I don't want to play that, and then just toss it every single time you see it. So this is sort of like a greater effort to make this a bit more fun, so you can see it and know that like it's going to be more difficult, but not unplayable.
Right.
Death Pulse. So we made some changes to Death Pulse. Now we prevent the Death Pulses from monsters that already have death explosions, like the lunatics. And we also prevent death pulses from spawning on top of each other or chaining with each other, so that you don't have to worry about an entire dungeon tile filling up with just death explosions that will one-shot you.
This is such a great change. So many times the lunatic explodes, and I'm like,
Yep.
all right,
Yeah.
I'm all good. And then I run in and like, no,
The
there's
lunatic
more
was bad
explosions.
enough. Yeah. And, yep, nope, we're good. There we go. Lightning Storm. Being shocked while in a bubble grants 35% bonus movement speed for 5 seconds. This is a change coupled with the other changes where it only starts with when
This is one of the
players
most
are in
annoying
combat,
thing, the little
and it only
lightning
starts
thing that
when
comes
you have
down.
a direct path
Especially when you're playing in a
to the
group.
protection bubble.
You need 4 bubbles.
These holistic changes were basically implemented to make sure that Lightning Storm doesn't slow down your Nightmare Dungeon exploration. What we were seeing a lot was players wanted to get through the Nightmare Dungeons quickly, but when they had Lightning Storm, they had to like stop, run backwards, go hide in a bubble, wait, then make up that lost time, stop, go backwards.
I would just not play the
The movement
dungeons,
speed
to be
bonus helps
honest.
a ton because it helps you make up that lost time faster. And then these other 2 changes mostly focus on some of the more egregious examples where like a traversal is in
What
between
is
you and
this
the bubble and
question?
you can't get to it in
Taco
time,
Bell or
or for some
Popeyes?
reason it's just a little too far behind you and it's difficult to get to. These will
TikTok
ensure
chat.
that you know when the lightning storm is going to happen, and you know there is a way to get to
Popeyes over
Yeah,
here is
that
too
makes
dry. So I think it depends on your location.
And finally, Drifting Shade. The duration of the Drifting Shade has decreased from 5 seconds to 3 seconds, and the respawn time has increased by 2 seconds. So similarly to Lightning Storm, we didn't want cases where the Drifting Shade pops up and then players spend more of their time running
Asking the
circles
real
around
questions,
the Drifting
man.
Shade than they do focusing on completing the
Okay, so
dungeon
Drifting
itself.
Shade is the thing that
this
makes
should
so you
make it a
cannot
little
play
bit
the
easier
game.
for the
Like, you can't
dungeons
use any of your
to-
skills.
For you to be able to navigate
not
the
fun.
dungeons
It's-
with Drifting Shade and not just want to avoid it completely.
It just give us 100% uptime, Wrath of the Berserker or Shadow Clone, and then we just ignore all the mechanics because that's
More
I'd say where the
Nightmare
game is
Dungeons
going in the
stuff.
direction.
Nightmare Dungeon.
So this is in addition to
It's not a
Nightmare
bad
Dungeons, this
thing,
is also for
but it's just, like,
normal
almost
dungeons,
inevitable.
But we changed some of the objectives for a handful of dungeons. You will see this in the Nightmare Dungeons for the season specifically, but we removed the objectives so that now when
Wait,
you
what?
go into the dungeon,
They completely just
all you
removed
have to
the
do is
entire
really just go
objectives of the
find
dungeons.
boss. You can focus on the critical path.
I want
There are
all of
dungeon
them to be
events and
like
other
that.
things going on that are optional, But if you want to go in and find
Place
the
objectives
boss,
on the
you can just go in and go straight to the boss. So we're trying out this change. We're going to see kind of how it works with the dungeons.
I
that
promise
we've
you, everyone's
implemented
just
on,
gonna do
and we're definitely
the
keeping an
maps that
eye out
have
on
this.
player feedback to see how they like it.
I know Rax, who's watching, has a tear of joy sliding down his face right now after hearing that, I'm sure.
And finally, for the pool of Nightmare Dungeons this season, like we do every season, we've went and evaluated the dungeon layouts, and we've redesigned a number of these. So for the ones that do have objectives, we've changed them to limit backtracking even further. But we also wanted to be conscious of making the dungeons just feel too linear. So we found a good balance where the player can engage in the objectives and the content without having to spend so much time running back and forth, which also contributes
What?
to the 40%.
There's no way on
increase
this you don't have to
get level
backtrack,
100.
though.
But as you can see
not
here,
as
here's one of the
bad,
Nightmare
but-
Dungeons that we have for Season 2. In this first
'Cause you still have to
objective
walk
here, we
from
had
here
our
back
elites
to
that
here,
needed
and
to
you would have
kill.
killed this one in the first
They were kind of
place.
off in the wings, and it created these really bad situations where if you took a wrong turn and then you realized too late that you missed one, you'd have to go all the way back and track that guy down and waste a ton of time. So we moved these objectives to the critical path. So as long as you're just on the main path, on the main loop, you will encounter them. And even if you do make a wrong turn, the penalty for getting back onto the critical path is not that significant. So it's like just less downtime in between reaching these objectives.
All right. Next, we have a bunch of updates to world events.
Yeah, world events
Okay.
and Legion events. No thanks.
Make it
Let's
worth
talk
it.
about that. Let's bring it up. We have a whole other slide. I think.
There we
There
go.
it is. Yes. So yeah, we've heard feedback from players. They're looking for more uptime on some of these events. They're looking for more opportunities to go and engage with this kind of content. So we made some changes as part of season 2. So right off the bat, Legion events time between events has been reduced from 30 minutes to 25 minutes. They're going to be more. You'll find them more frequently as you're playing. This is great because you do want to go farm these to get the materials you need to go fight Lord Zier. Particularly when you're in World Tier 4. So great opportunities for you to go and do these things. We've increased the duration of the warning timer. Moved that from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. One of the big reasons why we did this, and we did this in a few different places, but one of the reasons we did this is in situations where the player's like wrapping up a nightmare dungeon or they're just in an instance, we want to give them a chance for them to pop out and happen to see that warning is up so they know that they can go and try to chase that down. We also fixed some minor issues here where Legion event pins would not display at the edge of players' minimaps if a Whisper was active for that Legion event. Mm-hmm. So really, at the moment, we really want players to go after a Legion event. It wasn't really showing up. We made the same change for world bosses. Now, for world boss spawns, similarly, we made another change here. We reduced the duration between uptimes for the world boss from 6 hours to 3.5 hours. So these are going to be much more available for players.
But
to
there's
find
still no
and chase down
desire
as they
to
play.
do a world
Yeah,
boss.
it was something that,
in my opinion.
players have been talking about. Hey, I have a set schedule, or am I always at work when these world boss spawns occurs? So now there's
Okay,
more
just gonna
opportunities for
talk
players to
about
end
it.
up getting.
All right, for YouTube, I'm going to
their
make this in
chance
2
at a
parts
world
because
boss
it's already
really
1 hour. So
Yeah, likewise,
thanks for
we
watching
have
part 1. Part
increased
2 will be
the
uploaded
timer
very
for
soon.
these